The actual Indians, or rather known as the American Aborigines, have since blamed the government for the mismanagement of a trust in their names for well over 120 years, and now the US government owes them tens of billions of dollars. The dispute dates back to 1887, when Congress made the Interior Department the trustee for approximately 145 million acres of Indian lands in America. Black Indians, or rather Aborigines of America, were supposed to benefit, but the government gave the majority of the land, legal tenders, tax reliefs, and other federal specialized benefits to white settlers, who paid off the citizenship administrative organizations in order to become members of what is known as the 5 civilized tribes in Indian Territory by Congress. White settlers sought to reap the benefits of the Aborigines. In fact, one example of that will be the complexity of how successful, but so openly fraudulent, they did it. In 1895, the white settlers were informed of what benefits the Indians were entitled to, so they traveled to the Dawes Roll Commission to inquire about having their names enlisted on the roll cards for full-blooded and/or freedmen Indians of American lands. In 1898, the Dawes Roll acted as a census responsible for documenting records of one's ethnic background in order to determine one's association with specific American Indian tribes. Also, it played an important role with determining which Indian tribes would get land allotments and other benefits that I detailed earlier, in return for abolishing their tribal governments and recognizing federal laws. In order to receive the land, individual tribe members first had to apply and then be deemed eligible by the commission. The commission to the 5 civilized tribes was appointed by President Grover Cleveland in 1893 to negotiate land with the Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole tribes. It is commonly called the Dawes Commission after its chairman, Henry L. Dawes. In a 1963 episode of The Andy Griffith Show, the main character's son, named Opie, was profoundly decisive with informing his great aunt of some very intricate, persuasive details that he overheard from a white settler standing by. Knew that the white settler's story was inaccurate and very deceiving, but what is true is that white settlers utilized the same exact reasoning in order to acquire the approval of Indian enrollment eligibility for their personal gain. During the early part of the year 1902, the U.S. government reacted with malicious intent in developing a separate freedmen's list specifically designed to root out all copper-colored Indians from receiving these newly established benefits by way of the federal government.
Indigenous people of this land, the Chinese came in, mixed in with them, and produced what you're calling Native Americans today or Indians. And the Caucasian gave them all our rights. Now they walk around saying Cherokee, Choctaw, Shinnecock, Cheyenne, and we walk around saying African.
We have been brought up and raised through the system of Western civilization, right? Western civilization means white European rule, right? So when the colonizers from Europe came and took over the whole world, right, dominated every other culture, what they did was they replaced the indigenous way of thinking, which was right brain dominant thinking, which was creative thinking, which was shamanistic thinking, symbolic thinking, right? The indigenous cultures already established the communication style of getting in touch with the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the generator of your reality. The subconscious mind is a symbol-based operating system. Through the subconscious mind, we create and manage everything we see. The subconscious mind is God, for lack of a better word. When the colonizers went throughout the world and dominated and conquered every infestation of humans, they worked and fought extremely hard to replace that indigenous right brain thinking with logical and linear left brain thinking, right? They replaced the right brain thinking with the left brain thinking, and this is what we call Western civilization. Now, Western civilization was implemented because it was easier and better for the colonizers to move ahead. Okay, it was not so good for the indigenous people. So since the indigenous people are forced to think in a left brain linear way, it really hinders spirit. Okay, it really hinders the natural flow of the spirit world communicating to you. So that's why a lot of us have a lot of difficulty accepting how magic works.
What is also important to note, the U.S. government listed all full-blooded indigenous aborigines of America, mainly all of the Indians who they thought had African-like features, as black or colored, as their classification of race documented inside of the 1900 census. Simultaneously, white U.S. citizens were allowed to become identified as Indians by paying the Dawes Commission a whopping total of just $5 for each white adult and child to be listed on the Dawes roll. On April 1st, 1902, public notices were passed around, detailing that other claimants can legally make their cases for freeman enrollment.